every surgeon has secrets. Late-night mistakes buried in patient files. Shortcuts taken when supervisors weren't looking. Complications they'll never admit to. But Dr. Joseph Blackwell's secret was different. His secret was a success. The lipstick stain was still fresh on his collar when Joseph Blackwell pulled into his Beverly Hills driveway at 11:47 p.m. on a Sunday night. He'd just spent 3 days at the Four Seasons, not with colleagues at a medical conference like he told his wife, but with Amber, a 25-year-old pharmaceutical rep who made him feel like the god he believed himself to be. Joseph expected to find Gloria where she always was. Curled up in a library with her tea and those medical journals she still read even though she hadn't worked as a nurse in 6 years. Sweet, predictable Gloria, the perfect doctor's wife. He had his excuse ready. The conference ran late. You know how these things are. But when Joseph opened the front door, the silence hit him like a scalpel through bone. No lights, no sound, no Gloria on the marble entryway table, where she always left with vitamins and a glass of water. There was only a single white envelope with a law firm's logo embossed in gold. Inside that envelope was a legal notice that would stop his heart. Cease and desist for intellectual property theft. Gloria wasn't just leaving him. She was taking back the surgical technique that made him famous, because it was never his. For 6 years, Dr. Joseph Blackwell had been a medical celebrity. The Blackwell minimally invasive cardiac repair had saved thousands of lives. It had earned him $4.7 million in speaking fees, consulting contracts, and book deals. It had made him untouchable. Hospitals flew him around the world. Medical students studied his technique. Ted wanted him on their stage. And through it all, Gloria stood quietly in the background of hospital galas in her elegant dresses, smiling for photos, playing the role of the supportive wife. Joseph thought she was content. He thought she was lucky to be married to a brilliant surgeon. He thought she was simple. Joseph was catastrophically wrong about everything, because Gloria wasn't a simple former nurse who got lucky marrying a doctor. Gloria was Dr. Gloria Blackwell, a biomedical engineering prodigy with a PhD from Stanford. Her family owned an $800 million medical technology empire. She had designed that revolutionary technique in her doctoral research 3 years before Joseph ever performed his first surgery. She had given up her career because she loved him. She had stayed silent about her contributions because she trusted him. She had believed they were partners. But when Gloria found evidence of Joseph's affair 11 months ago, she didn't cry. She didn't confront him. She didn't beg him to stay. She planned. And on that Sunday night, when Joseph walked to the door with another woman's lipstick on his collar, Gloria's plan went into motion. The lawsuit, the frozen accounts, the FBI investigation, the public exposure, the complete and total destruction of a man who built his empire on stolen genius. This is a story of what happens when you underestimate the quiet ones, when you steal from a genius, and when the woman you betrayed decides to take back everything that was always hers. But to understand how Dr. Joseph Blackwell lost everything, his career, his fortune, his freedom, his identity, we have to go back to where the lies began. 72 hours earlier, Miami, Florida, the Four Seasons Hotel, where Joseph Blackwell was planning his future with his mistress, while the woman he underestimated was planning his destruction. 72 hours before his world ended, Joseph Blackwell was living his best life at the Four Seasons in Miami. The suite overlooked the ocean, the champagne was Dom Perignon, and Amber was everything Gloria wasn't: young, exciting, impressed by him. She traced her finger along his chest while he talked about their future, their real future. Once he figured out how to leave Gloria, without losing the house. She seemed so sweet at those hospital events, Amber said, her voice tinged with something that might have been guilt if Joseph had been paying attention. He laughed, actually laughed, Sweet, sure. Simple. She was a nurse who got lucky marrying a surgeon. She has no idea what it takes to be at my level. He took a sip of champagne, feeling generous, feeling like a god. Gloria's happy. She has her garden club, her book club, her charity auctions. She's living the life most women dream of. Joseph genuinely believed this. He worked 80-hour weeks. He saved lives. He pioneered surgical techniques. He deserved excitement. He deserved passion. He deserved someone who understood greatness. The flight home Sunday afternoon, Joseph rehearsed his lies the way he'd done a dozen times before. Conference went well. The keynote panel ran long. Productive networking. He perfected the art of the alibi. Enough detail to sound authentic, vague enough to avoid fact-checking. He called Gloria from the airport to let her know he was landing. Straight to voicemail. Probably at her book club, he thought. Or asleep. She kept such predictable hours. His confidence was absolute. When Joseph pulled into the circular driveway at 11:47 p.m., the house was dark. Not unusual, but not normal either. Gloria always left the entryway light on when she knew he was coming home. He grabbed his luggage, still smelling faintly of Amber's perfume, and used his key. The silence hit him first. No sound of the espresso machine. She always ran before bed. No classical music drifting from the library where she read those medical journals she still subscribed to, like she was keeping a connection to a career she'd abandoned years ago. The darkness felt thick, heavy with absence. Joseph flipped on the lights. Everything looked normal. Pristine. Too pristine. He walked through the kitchen. No dishes in the sink. No tea mug on the counter. The mail was still in the box outside. Gloria never left mail uncollected. Her car wasn't in the garage. She probably went to bed early, he said aloud to the empty house, but his voice sounded hollow. Then he saw it. On the marble entryway table where Gloria always left his vitamins and a glass of water, there was only a single white envelope. Heavy cardstock. Law firm logo embossed in gold. Reynolds Stone and Associates. Joseph's hand shook as he opened it. The words swam before his eyes. Cease and desist. Unauthorized use of patented medical technology. Intellectual property theft. The Blackwell technique, his fame, his entire career, listed as stolen property. What the hell is this? His voice cracked. Some kind of prank? Is this because I missed her birthday dinner? He grabbed his phone, dialed Gloria. The automated voice was cold. The number you have reached is no longer in service. He called her sister Jennifer. She answered, heard his voice, and hung up immediately. He called Gloria's best friend Monica. Blocked. Joseph's breath came faster. He ran upstairs to their bedroom. Her closet was empty. Not just empty, erased. No clothes, no shoes, no jewelry boxes. The bathroom had none of her products. No toothbrush. No prescriptions. In the bedroom, her nightstand was cleared. The book she'd been reading, gone. The framed photo of their wedding, gone. He sprinted to her office down the hall, throwing open the door. The room was bare. Desk, gone. Bookshelf, gone. Her filing cabinets, her computer, her diplomas that hung on the wall, all gone. The room was completely empty except for one thing. A single metal filing cabinet stood in the center of the room like a tombstone. Taped to the front was a piece of paper with Gloria's precise handwriting. Your defense will need these. Joseph's knees went weak. This wasn't a fight. This wasn't Gloria being dramatic or emotional. This was surgical. This was planned. This was a woman who had erased herself from his life with the precision of someone who knew exactly what she was doing. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a terrible thought began to form. What if Gloria wasn't simple at all? What if he'd been wrong about everything? At 1 a.m., Joseph stood in front of the filing cabinet like it might explode. His hands trembled as he pulled open the first drawer. Manila folders, dozens of them, organized with Gloria's meticulous precision. He grabbed the first one. The label made his stomach drop. Patent application. Minimally invasive cardiac repair system. Filed March 2016. March 2016. 2 years before Joseph performed his first surgery using the technique. 2 years before he stood in that operating room at Cedars-Sinai and made medical history. 2 years before his career exploded into fame and fortune. Inside were diagrams that looked like they belonged in an aerospace engineering lab. Biomechanical stress calculations. Computational fluid dynamics equations. Prototype designs with measurements precise to the micrometer. The handwriting was Gloria's, that careful, methodical script he'd seen on grocery lists and birthday cards. But these weren't grocery lists. This was graduate-level biomedical engineering, technical language he didn't fully understand, mathematics that made his medical school calculus look like elementary arithmetic. "This is insane," he muttered, flipping through pages of blood flow dynamics and material stress analysis. Gloria was just a nurse. She must have copied these from somewhere. She must have... But even as he said it, the lie felt thin. The defense mechanism kicked in anyway, that voice in his head that had protected his ego for years. "We worked on this together. She helped me, sure, but I'm the one who made it work." She drew some sketches. "I turned them into an actual surgical procedure. I'm the surgeon. I took the risk." A memory surfaced, unwanted. 2016. Gloria at the kitchen table late at night, sketching, her eyes bright with excitement. "Joseph, look at this. If we adjust the angle of approach here, the stress distribution means we could reduce recovery time by 40%. He barely looked up from his phone. "That's nice, honey." Yeah, looks good." She tried again the next night, and the next. "If this works, Joseph, it could revolutionize cardiac surgery. The biomechanics, I'll take a look later." He never took a serious look. He just absorbed the ideas osmotically, like background noise that seeped into his brain, until he convinced himself they were his own thoughts. By 6 a.m., Joseph hadn't slept. The second folder sat open in front of him. Intellectual property theft documentation. Hospital records showed the timeline. October 2018, Joseph's first surgery using the method. But here were Gloria's notebooks from 2015, filled with the exact same technique, the exact same approach, the exact same terminology. Video footage showed Joseph teaching residents. The key is understanding the stress vectors, word for word from Gloria's notes. Financial records were brutal in their clarity. Speaking fees, book deals, consulting contracts. Total earnings from the technique. $4.7 million over 6 years. $4.7 million. Built on Gloria's genius. While she arranged flowers and attended charity auctions. His phone rang at 6:47 a.m. Hospital Chief of Surgery, Dr. Patricia Morrison. Joseph's throat went dry. "Joseph, we need you to come in immediately. We received a legal notice regarding your surgical technique." He tried to sound confident, tried to channel the arrogance that usually served him so well. "Patricia, it's a misunderstanding with my wife. She's upset about some personal matters, and she's..." Dr. Morrison's voice cut through his excuse like a scalpel. "This isn't about your marriage, Joseph. This is about potential fraud. We've been presented with evidence that the technique you've been credited with may have been developed by someone else. Don't come to the hospital. Go to the legal department downtown. Now." The line went dead. Joseph sat in the empty office as dawn light crept through the windows. His entire identity was built on that technique. The awards, the reputation, the speaking tours, the respect of his colleagues. All of it traced back to the Blackwell method. And now Gloria was claiming it was never his. He needed help. He needed his partner, Dr. James Chun, the one person who'd been with him since the beginning of his career, who'd supported him through every surgery, every triumph. James would understand. James would help him fight this. Joseph dialed the number, his hand shaking. He had no idea he was about to discover the biggest secret of all. The hospital's legal department occupied the entire 14th floor of a glass tower downtown. At 9 a.m., Joseph sat across from 3 lawyers in expensive suits and Dr. Patricia Morrison, whose face was carved from stone. The head counsel, Margaret Hayes, slid a thick document across the table with the kind of practiced calm that made Joseph's skin crawl. Dr. Blackwell, we received a comprehensive legal filing from Reynolds Stone and Associates. Joseph forced a laugh, tried to sound dismissive. Reynolds Stone? That's a $2,000 an hour firm. My wife doesn't have that kind of money. The silence that followed was suffocating. Margaret and Dr. Morrison exchanged a glance. Margaret cleared her throat. Your wife is Dr. Gloria Blackwell. Her family's net worth is approximately $800 million. The room tilted. Joseph's ears rang. What? No. Her father was a librarian. Her family is their nobody. Dr. Morrison leaned forward, her voice clinical. Her father was Dr. Michael Chun. He held 3 patents in cardiac devices before he retired to teach. Her mother is Catherine Vanderhoven Chun. Vanderhoven? Joseph's voice cracked. Like the Vanderhoven Medical Center Vanderhoven? Yes, Joseph. Your wife's maternal family funded half the hospitals in the Northeast. Margaret opened a folder. Gloria's actual CV stared up at him like an accusation. PhD in biomedical engineering. Stanford University, 2012. 12 published papers in peer-reviewed journals. Former research lead at your medical technologies. Named one of Forbes 30 under 30 in medical innovation, 2014. Credentials that belong to someone brilliant, someone accomplished, someone Joseph had never bothered to truly know. She told me she was a nurse, Joseph whispered. She was a surgical nurse. Yes, after her PhD. She said she wanted to understand the clinical application of her designs. Margaret paused. She was brilliant, Dr. Blackwell. She still is. Margaret's voice hardened. Dr. Blackwell's legal filing includes evidence that you've been engaged in an extramarital affair for approximately 18 months. She slid photographs across the table. Joseph and Amber at a restaurant, laughing. At a hotel, holding hands. Walking on the beach. Timestamps, locations, credit card receipts. A timeline of betrayal documented with Gloria's characteristic precision. She hired a private investigator 11 months ago. She's been building this case ever since. Joseph's defense mechanism kicked in, desperate now. This is ridiculous. We worked on that technique together as husband and wife. It's marital property. Margaret's response was surgical. The patent was filed before your marriage. The technique was developed during her doctoral research. You met her at Stanford when you were doing your fellowship, specifically because you attended her presentation on minimally invasive cardiac solutions. The memory crashed into Joseph like a wave. 2014 Stanford Medical Conference. He'd been struggling in his fellowship, feeling inadequate, watching his peers innovate while he just executed. Then Gloria took the stage, 32, radiant, brilliant, presenting research that made the room lean forward. After her talk, he'd approached her, drawn to her genius like a moth to flame. That was incredible. I'm Joseph Blackwell, cardiac fellow. Would you want to get coffee? She'd smiled, flattered. I'd love that. Their entire relationship started because he was attracted to her brilliance. Then he'd spent 8 years systematically erasing it, convincing himself he was smarter, more capable, more deserving. Joseph stumbled out of the building at 10:30 a.m., his world in fragments. He needed help. He needed James Chun, his partner, his friend. James would understand. James had to understand. James, I need your help. Gloria has gone crazy. She's filed this insane lawsuit. James's voice came through the phone like ice water. Don't call me again, Joseph. What? James, we've been partners for 8 years. You were never my partner. You were my sister's husband. The words hit like a physical blow. The only reason you're a surgeon at Cedars-Sinai is because my family has donated $15 million to that hospital. Joseph's vision blurred. Your sister? Gloria Chun Blackwell. My little sister. The woman you cheated on. The woman whose research you stole. James's voice broke with controlled rage. Gloria loved you, Joseph. She gave up a career most people would kill for because she thought you were partners. She thought you valued her mind. Then she found the hotel receipts and realized you never saw her at all. You saw a nurse who looked good on your arm. You have no idea who you married. The line went dead. Joseph stood on the sidewalk as the city moved around him. Every success he'd attributed to his own merit. The position at Cedars-Sinai, the angel investors, the speaking engagements, the connections, all Gloria. Always Gloria. Opening doors with her family's name while he convinced himself he'd kicked them down with his own brilliance. He needed someone who still believed in him. Someone who made him feel powerful. He dialed Amber's number with shaking fingers, desperate for the one person who might still think he was worth something. Joseph sat in his car outside a strip mall in Studio City, hands shaking as he dialed Amber's number. She was the only person left who still believed in him. She had to be. We need to talk. Can I come over? Her voice came through strained, distant. No. Meet me at Bluebird Cafe in 20 minutes. The refusal to let him come to her apartment registered somewhere in the back of his mind, but he pushed it away. She was probably just being cautious. Once he explained everything, she'd understand. 20 minutes later, Amber walked into the cafe looking like she was attending a funeral. She wouldn't meet his eyes, her hands clutched around her purse like a lifeline. Joseph stood to greet her with a kiss, but she slid into the seat across from him, keeping the small table between them like a barrier. It's all a misunderstanding, Joseph started, the words tumbling out too fast. Gloria is trying to sabotage me because she found out about us. She's vindictive. She's always been. Found out. Amber's laugh was hollow. Joseph, the lawsuit is public record. It's on legal databases. It's going to be in the medical journals. So what? We can leave. We can go to Europe. Start over. I've got money saved. Do you? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Amber pulled out her phone with trembling fingers and turned it toward him. The headline on Med Daily made his vision swim. Renowned surgeon accused of stealing wife's research. This was posted an hour ago. My boss called me into her office this morning. Joseph's stomach dropped. What did they say? They asked if I was the unnamed pharmaceutical representative mentioned in the court filing. She finally looked at him, and her eyes were cold. Do you know what your medical technologies is, Joseph? He shook his head, feeling suddenly very stupid. My company has a $60 million contract with them. If Gloria's family wanted to, they could destroy my entire career with one phone call. Her voice cracked. I could lose my job. I could be blacklisted from the entire pharmaceutical industry. We'll figure out together. There is no together. There never was. She pulled the promise ring from her finger, the one that had cost him $12,000, the one she cried over when he gave it to her at that restaurant in Malibu. She placed it on the table between them with a soft click that sounded like a door closing. I like the lifestyle, Joseph. The five-star hotels, the expensive dinners, the gifts. I liked that you were this brilliant, famous surgeon. I am a brilliant surgeon. No. Her voice was surgical in its precision. You're a competent technician who was married to a genius. And now everyone knows it. She stood up, shouldered her purse. Don't contact me again. If you show up at my work, I'll call security. Joseph watched her walk out, his world continuing its freefall. He sat there for a long moment, then signaled a barista. When she brought the check, he pulled out his American Express black card with fingers that barely worked. Declined. His heart hammered. He tried his Visa. The card reader beeped mockingly. Declined. Do you have cash? Joseph opened his wallet with hands that shook. $43 in crumpled bills. He counted them out while other customers watched, while someone in line pulled out their phone and whispered to their friend. He saw the recognition dawn on their face, saw them angle the camera toward him. He walked out into the harsh California sunlight, knowing that by tonight, a photo of his humiliation would be circulating somewhere online. He'd lost his partner. He'd lost his mistress. He'd lost his credit cards. But he still had his house. He still had that. When Joseph pulled into the circular driveway at 2 p.m., the moving trucks made his heart stop. Two of them massive and efficient, with men in matching uniforms carrying furniture, art pieces, belongings that looked familiar but suddenly foreign. He slammed the car door and stormed inside, his voice cracking with desperation. What the hell is going on? Who authorized this? She appeared at the top of the staircase like an apparition from another life. Gloria descended slowly, deliberately, wearing a sharp black business suit that transformed her into someone he didn't recognize. Her hair was shorter, styled with professional precision. She wore glasses he'd never seen before, designer frames that made her look powerful, intellectual, untouchable. Nothing like the woman who used to make his coffee every morning in her bathrobe. Hello, Joseph. I'm glad you're here. We need to go over a few things. You can't just move my things out of my house. The anger felt hollow even as he summoned it. It's not your house. Her voice was clinical, detached. It was purchased through the Chun family trust. The deed is in my name. Always has been. That's impossible. I paid the mortgage. Did you ever actually look at the mortgage documents? There is no mortgage, Joseph. My family bought this house outright, as a wedding gift. The mortgage payments you were making went into a marital savings account. She paused, let it sink in, which is also frozen. Joseph's mind reeled, grasping for something, anything to regain control. You're remembering the technique thing wrong. We developed it together, over dinners, conversations. Gloria pulled out an iPad with the calm of someone who'd anticipated every defense. She turned the screen toward him. Video footage, time-stamped March 2015. A younger Gloria stood before a thesis committee in a Stanford laboratory, presenting the exact surgical technique that had made him famous. 3 years before his first surgery. This is my doctoral defense, Joseph. March 2015. Watch. On screen, Gloria explained stress vectors, biomechanical calculations, the precise methodology he later claimed as innovation. A professor's voice. Have you considered which cardiac surgeons might be interested in testing this clinically? Video Gloria smiled, hopeful and naive. I actually started dating a surgical fellow named Joseph Blackwell. He's brilliant. I'm hoping to collaborate with him once I have my degree. Present Gloria stopped the video. I wanted to collaborate with you, Joseph. Instead, you waited until I was pregnant with our son, convinced me to take a break from research, and then you published my work under your name. The words didn't make sense. What son? We don't have kids. Her voice cracked for the first time, a hairline fracture in her composure. Because I lost him. I was 5 months pregnant, and I lost him. You were at a medical conference. Except you weren't. You were in Vegas with that surgical resident before Amber. The memories surfaced, distant and ugly. The weekend trip. Gloria's frantic calls he'd ignored. Coming home to find her pale, devastated. Telling him something he'd barely listened to because he'd been hungover and irritated that she was being emotional. You don't remember, do you? You don't even remember that I was pregnant. He had nothing to say. The truth was worse than any lie. He genuinely forgot. Joseph's anger collapsed into desperate pleading. Gloria, please. I made mistakes. I was stupid. But destroying my career? That's too far. I'm not destroying your career, Joseph. I'm protecting mine. That technique is mine. Those patents are mine. The research is mine. I'm simply taking back what you stole. But I'm the one who performed it. I'm the one who proved it works. You were the hands, Joseph. She looked at him with something close to pity. You were always just the hands. I was the brain. He tried negotiation, the last refuge of the defeated. Fine. Put your name on it, too. We'll call it the Blackwell technique. We can share credit. Gloria actually laughed, a sound so foreign it made him flinch. Share credit? Joseph, I filed for patent 7 years ago. It's called the Chin Minimally Invasive Cardiac Repair System. It's always been called that. You just started calling it the Blackwell technique, and everyone was too polite to correct you. She produced a document, pointed to the footnotes of his first publication. Special thanks to Dr. Gloria Chun for her insights on biomechanical engineering principles. His own words, buried where no one would notice. I made you include that. Do you remember? I said if you were going to write about my technique, you needed to credit me. You buried it in a footnote and told me be grateful you mentioned me at all. Joseph sank into a chair that would be gone within the hour. Why did you stay? If I was so terrible, why did you stay for 8 years? Gloria sat across from him, and for a moment he saw the woman he'd married. Because I loved you. Because I thought underneath the ego you were a good man. Because I convinced myself that your arrogance was just professional armor and that you valued me privately. I did value you. You valued my cooking, my housekeeping, the way I looked in photos at hospital galas. You never once asked about my research. You never read a single one of my papers. You never even wondered why someone with a PhD from Stanford was content to arrange flowers and host dinner parties. The silence stretched between them like the 8 years they'd wasted. When did you stop loving me? The morning I found the first hotel receipt, 11 months ago, Valentine's Day weekend. The weekend you told me you were at a trauma surgery conference. She'd known for 11 months. She'd been planning this for 11 months while he felt secure, invincible, untouchable. I hired a private investigator that day. I contacted an intellectual property lawyer. I gathered every piece of evidence, patents, notebooks, emails, videos. I documented every time you presented my work as yours. Her voice was steady now, surgical. I wanted to be sure. I wanted an airtight case. And I wanted you to feel exactly what I felt. Secure one moment, destroy the next. What do you want from me? Nothing. I want nothing from you. I want my technique back, my reputation restored, and my name removed from yours. You can keep the medical degree you actually earned. Everything else is mine. One last desperate gambit. You'll never win this. I'm a respected surgeon. You're a housewife nobody has heard from in years. Gloria stood, looked down at him with the full weight of everything he'd never seen. Joseph, I'm a majority stakeholder in a medical technology company worth $800 million. My research has been cited over 3,000 times. I've had a standing job offer from Johns Hopkins for 6 years. The only nobody in this room is you. You just didn't know it yet. She walked to the door where her assistant and lawyer waited. Joseph's voice broke. Gloria, wait, what am I supposed to do? She turned back one last time. You're a talented surgeon, Joseph. Be that. Stop trying to be a genius. Stop stealing. Stop lying. Just be honestly average. It's not that bad. I can't afford a lawyer. I know. I made sure of it. There's a $5,000 prepaid Visa card in the envelope on the kitchen counter. It's more generosity than you showed me. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore. You made your choices. Now live with them. She walked out. The movers followed with the last pieces of furniture. Joseph sat alone in an empty mansion that had never been his, in a life that had never been his. With a reputation built on the genius of a woman he'd never bothered to truly see. And in his ruined mind, one terrible thought began to form. If he couldn't beat her in court, maybe he could destroy her in the court of public opinion. It was the worst idea he'd ever had. The Motel 6 in Stanford smelled like cigarettes and failure. Joseph sat on a scratchy bedspread, laptop balanced on his knees, the $5,000 prepaid card feeling like an insult in his wallet. Through the thin walls, he could hear a couple arguing, a baby crying, the sound of people whose lives had also gone wrong. His pride wouldn't let him accept this. Couldn't let him accept this. If Gloria wanted to destroy him, fine. But she was coming down with him. If I'm going down, she's coming with me. He opened his email and began to type with shaking fingers. The recipient list grew with each click. Every major medical journal, hospital board, news outlet he could think of. 400 contacts. 400 chances to expose Gloria for what she really was. A vindictive woman using her family's wealth to destroy him. The email took him 3 hours to craft. He claimed Gloria was rewriting history to punish him for wanting a divorce. He suggested she was mentally unstable, unable to accept that their marriage had failed. He implied she was weaponizing her family's money to bully him into submission. He painted himself as the victim of cancel culture, a respected surgeon brought low by a scorned wife's lies. He even attached evidence. Photos of Gloria from years ago, exhausted after miscarriage he barely remembered, disheveled and crying. Out of context, they looked damning. They looked like a woman, unhinged. He titled it, Cancel Culture Comes for Respected Surgeon, The Truth About Gloria Chun. At 11:47 p.m., his finger hovered over the send button. For a moment, doubt flickered. But his ego, that relentless engine that had driven him this far, wouldn't let him stop. He hit send. The rush was immediate, intoxicating. For the first time in 48 hours, he felt powerful. Let's see how she handles a PR nightmare, he muttered to the empty room. He closed a laptop, stretched out on the bed, and fell asleep convinced he'd turned the tide. The pounding on the door at 6 a.m. pulled him from dreams of vindication. Disoriented, he stumbled across the room and opened it to find 2 FBI agents and a police officer, their faces carved from stone. Dr. Joseph Blackwell? Yes. His voice came out strangled. You're under arrest for criminal harassment, defamation, and violation of a restraining order. The handcuffs were cold against his wrists. What restraining order? This is insane. I just sent emails. In the back of the police car, an FBI agent turned to look at him with something close to pity. You also committed wire fraud, Dr. Blackwell. What are you talking about? Your email claimed Dr. Chin Blackwell falsified research. That's defamation. You sent across state lines using electronic means. That's wire fraud. I was defending myself. You were violating a court order and attempting to damage your professional reputation with false claims. The agent's voice was flat, final. You made this much worse for yourself. What court order? The emergency protective order filed Monday afternoon, granted at 4 p.m. It specifically prohibits you from contacting Dr. Blackwell, disparaging her professionally, or discussing the case publicly. Your mass email went to over 400 recipients. Every single one is documented evidence of violation. Joseph's parents mortgaged their house to post bail. By the time he was released Tuesday afternoon, the story had metastasized beyond his worst nightmares. His phone, the one thing they'd returned to him, was flooded with news alerts. Surgeon arrested for stealing wife's research, then harassing her. Dr. Gloria Blackwell, the genius behind the technique. How one woman's intellectual property was stolen by her husband. Medical journals were publishing scathing editorials about intellectual property theft in medicine. Stanford had issued a statement supporting Gloria. 3 hospitals announced they were renaming the technique the cardiac repair. His name was being systematically erased from his own legacy. The court-appointed attorney called him that evening. "Mr. Blackwell, you need to take the plea deal." "What plea deal?" "Mrs. Blackwell's attorneys have offered to drop the criminal charges if you plead no contest to the intellectual property theft, surrender all rights and royalties from the technique, issue a public apology and correction, agree to never practice medicine under credentials you obtained using her research, and pay $2.3 million in restitution over 10 years. Joseph's voice broke. "That's my entire future. The alternative is 3 to 5 years in federal prison for fraud, harassment, and IP theft. You'd still lose your medical license, and you'd have a felony record." The lawyer paused. "What do you want to do?" Joseph sat in that cheap motel room, his pride finally completely broken. "What do I do?" "You sign, and you disappear." He signed the papers the next morning, his hand steady for the first time in days. He thought that was the end. He thought he'd hit bottom. He had no idea how far he still had to fall. 3 months later, Joseph sat before the California State Medical Board in a borrowed suit, watching his career dissected with surgical precision. The hearing room was austere, clinical, fitting for the execution of a doctor's livelihood. The character witnesses came one after another, each testimony another nail in his coffin. A former resident, Dr. Emily Park, took the stand with hands folded calmly in her lap. Dr. Blackwell once presented my research at a conference without crediting me. I thought it was a mistake. Now I know it was his pattern. The Hospital Ethics Committee presented their findings with devastating clarity. Multiple instances of questionable credit attribution. Papers published with mysteriously absent co-authors. Techniques developed that bore suspicious resemblance to other people's work. The Gloria situation wasn't an isolated incident of marital dysfunction. It was who Joseph was. A pattern stretcher, a credit thief, a man who built his reputation on other people's genius. When Gloria took the stand, she looked nothing like the woman he'd married. She was composed, professional, dressed in a navy suit that spoke of boardrooms and power. She didn't cry. She didn't get emotional. She simply presented the facts with the precision of someone who'd spent her entire career in research, timeline, evidence, documentation. The cross-examination tried to paint her as vindictive, a scorned wife weaponizing the courts. Gloria's response was ice-cold and unassailable. "This isn't about my marriage. This is about my life's work. If a colleague had stolen my research, I'd pursue the same case. My ex-husband doesn't get special treatment just because we were married." The board chair leaned forward. "Dr. Blackwell, why didn't you speak up sooner?" For the first time, something flickered in her eyes. Not anger, but sadness for her younger, more trusting self. "I trusted him. I believed we were partners. I believed that privately he valued my contributions even if he didn't acknowledge them publicly. I was wrong." The prosecution played a video montage that destroyed what little remained of Joseph's defense. Side-by-side footage of Gloria's 2015 doctoral defense and Joseph's 2019 TED Talk. The similarities weren't just striking, they were damning. Same metaphors about cardiac tissue behaving like bridge cables under stress. Same explanations of biomechanical principles. Same hand gestures when describing the surgical approach. It wasn't homage or inspiration. It was theft, plagiarism elevated to performance art. The verdict came swift and merciless. Dr. Blackwell, we find that you engaged in fraud, misrepresentation, and theft of intellectual property. Your medical license is hereby permanently revoked. Permanently? His voice cracked like a teenager's. I can never practice again. The board chair's expression held no sympathy. You may apply for reinstatement in no less than 10 years, subject to complete retraining, ethical review, and approval. Given the severity and public nature of your misconduct, approval is unlikely. The civil judgment came next. The judge awarded Gloria full ownership and credit for the chin cardiac repair system. $2.3 million in damages. Every dollar Joseph had earned from her technique. Legal fees of $180,000. And a public correction. Joseph was required to publish an admission in 3 major medical journals. His parents sold their house to cover the initial payment. The home where he'd grown up, where his mother had baked cookies and his father had taught him to throw a baseball, liquidated to pay for his theft from a woman who'd loved him. The public apology was filmed in a sterile office. A court reporter present to verify authenticity. Joseph sat before a camera, notes shaking in his hands, and read the statement his lawyer had drafted. I, Dr. Joseph Blackwell, hereby acknowledge that the cardiac surgical technique commonly known as the Blackwell technique was designed, developed, and patented by Dr. Gloria Blackwell. I improperly took credit for her work. I apologize to Dr. Blackwell, to the medical community, and to the patients who believed they were receiving my innovation when in fact they were benefiting from hers. I take full responsibility for my actions. His voice cracked on the word improperly. He looked directly into the camera, and anyone watching could see it. The complete humiliation, the total defeat of a man who believed himself untouchable. The video went viral. 4 million views in the first week. Comment sections filled with mockery, schadenfreude, and occasional sympathy that was quickly shouted down. He became a meme, a cautionary tale, a punchline. Joseph thought that was the end of his punishment. The license revoked, the money paid, the public apology delivered. He thought he could rebuild, reinvent, start over somewhere new. But consequences have a way of lasting longer than we expect. 3 years later, Joseph would discover that the worst part wasn't the fall. It was staying down. The CVS pharmacy in suburban Connecticut smelled like hand sanitizer and regret. Joseph Blackwell, formerly Dr. Joseph Blackwell, formerly renowned cardiac surgeon, formerly somebody, stood behind the counter in a pharmacy tech vest, his name tag reading simply Joseph, pharmacy technician. No title, no credentials, just Joseph. He was 45 now, though he looked older. The operating room had been replaced by fluorescent lights and linoleum floors. The precise work of cardiac surgery had devolved into counting pills, stocking shelves, running the register for $18 an hour. He lived in a 600-square-foot apartment with walls so thin he could hear his neighbor's TV at night. He drove a 12-year-old Honda Civic that made concerning noises when he accelerated, and every month, $1,900 of his meager paycheck went directly to Gloria in court-ordered restitution. 7 more years of payments stretched ahead of him like a prison sentence. The customer approached while Joseph was restocking blood pressure monitors, and his stomach dropped before the man even spoke. He knew that look, the squint of recognition, the mental calculation, the sudden spark of realization. Hey, don't I know you? I don't think so. Joseph kept his voice neutral, professional, hoping. The customer pulled out his phone, fingers moving across the screen. "Wait, you're that surgeon, the one who stole from his wife." His voice carried across the store. Other customers turned to look. "Man, that was wild. She destroyed you." Joseph's smile felt like it might crack his face. "Can I help you find something?" The customer was already calling to his friend in the next aisle. "This is the guy. This is actually him." They laughed, took photos they probably thought were subtle. Joseph had to stand there, had to stay professional, had to keep his job. It happened 2 or 3 times a week. He'd tried dating apps last year, desperate for connection, for someone who might see him as more than his worst moment. Every date ended the same way. First date would be pleasant, careful. Second date would be warmer. By the third date, they'd Google him. So I saw some articles. The words were always gentle, but the dates always ended early. He gave up 6 months ago. The medical journals still came to his apartment, though he could barely afford the subscriptions. He couldn't help it. Some part of him was still that person, still defined by medicine, even though medicine had excommunicated him. He read about new techniques, new innovations, advances in cardiac care that built on foundations he used to claim as his own. Every third article cited Gloria's original research, building on the foundational work of Chan et al. Her name was everywhere in his former field, a cornerstone of modern cardiac surgery. His name appeared only in cautionary ethics papers. The Blackwell case demonstrates the critical importance of intellectual property integrity in medical research. On his lunch break, Joseph sat in the cramped break room, unwrapping a sandwich he'd made that morning because he couldn't afford to buy lunch. The TV mounted in the corner was playing CNN, and he wasn't really watching until the segment title appeared. Medical Innovator of the Year. He looked up. It was Gloria. She appeared on screen like a vision from another dimension, poised, radiant, powerful. The Chiron identified her as Dr. Gloria Blackwell, founder and CEO, Gloria Medical Technologies. She was being interviewed at some glittering medical technology summit, wearing a white suit that probably cost more than Joseph's monthly rent. His sandwich sat forgotten in his hands. He couldn't look away. The woman he betrayed, the genius he'd underestimated, the wife he'd reduced to a supporting character in his own narrative, was about to show him exactly how high she climbed while he was still crawling in the dirt. And somewhere deep in his chest, in the place where his pride used to live, Joseph felt the final truth settle like a stone. This was his life now. This was forever. Gloria had moved on, moved up, moved into a future, so bright it hurt to look at. While he was here, counting pills in a strip mall, paying penance for believing he could steal genius and call it his own. The TV droned on. Gloria smiled at the interviewer. Joseph's lunch break had 11 minutes left. The interviewer leaned forward with practiced warmth. "Dr. Blackwell, your company just received FDA approval for the next-generation cardiac repair system. This builds on your original chin technique." Gloria's smile was confident, genuine, the smile of someone who'd earned every accolade. "Yes, we refined the approach using advanced biomaterials and AI-guided surgical planning. Early trials show a 40% improvement in recovery time. Your company is valued at $1.2 billion. How does it feel to finally get recognition for work you developed over a decade ago?" "It feels like coming home to myself." The words hung in the air, simple and profound. Joseph's sandwich had gone soggy in his hands. The interviewer's expression shifted, delicate but direct. There was that highly publicized case a few years ago. Gloria handled it with the grace of someone who'd long since made peace with her past. "There was a situation where I had to legally protect my intellectual property. It was difficult, but necessary. I'm grateful it led me to where I am now." She didn't say his name, didn't dwell on it. She'd moved so far beyond him that he was barely a footnote in her origin story. An obstacle overcome, a chapter closed. The camera panned to show a man standing just off-screen. Tall, distinguished salt-and-pepper hair. Kind eyes that crinkled when he smiled. Gloria reached for his hand with the natural ease of people who genuinely liked each other. "And this is your husband, Dr. Marcus Westbrook, correct?" Marcus stepped forward, and the way he looked at Gloria made Joseph's chest constrict. "Yes, I'm very proud of her. Watching her revolutionize cardiac care has been the honor of my life." Gloria looked at Marcus with a love that was visible even through the television screen, the way she used to look at Joseph before she discovered who he really was. "You're a biomedical engineer as well?" "I am. We actually co-author most of our research now. Gloria's brilliant, but she's also generous in collaboration. It's a true partnership." The word partnership landed like a blade between Joseph's ribs. That's what she'd wanted with him. That's what he destroyed through arrogance and theft. The B-roll footage showed Gloria Medical Headquarters, sleek glass and steel. People in lab coats working on innovations that would save lives. Gloria leading a team of researchers, everyone leaning in to hear her ideas. Surgeons around the world, using devices bearing her name. Awards mounted on walls. Patents, buildings, medical devices revolutionizing cardiac care. Her name everywhere, permanent and celebrated. What's next for Gloria Medical? We're expanding into neurosurgical applications, and we're launching a scholarship program for women in biomedical engineering, specifically for women who took career breaks and want to return to research. Is that personal? Gloria's expression softened. Very. I took 6 years away from my career. I want other women to know that taking time doesn't mean losing your brilliance. You can always come back. And when you do, you can be stronger than ever. The interview ended. Joseph sat motionless as his phone buzzed, a payment reminder for his monthly restitution. 7 more years. The TV moved to the next segment. Something about trade policy. His co-worker Dave walked in, grabbed his lunch from a fridge. "You okay, Joseph? You look like you saw a ghost." "Yeah, I'm fine." Dave noticed the TV, caught the tail end of Gloria's segment. "Hey, that lady is amazing. Did you see her story? Her ex-husband tried to steal her research, and she just destroyed him. Good for her." Joseph said nothing. Dave opened his thermos, oblivious. "You ever wish you'd done something big with your life?" Joseph's voice came out barely above a whisper. "Every single day." At 9 p.m., Joseph closed the register, counted out the drawer, turned off the lights. The parking lot was empty except for his Honda, sitting under a flickering streetlight like a monument to mediocrity. His phone pinged, an email newsletter from Stanford Medical School. Subject: Alumni Spotlight, Dr. Gloria in Blackwell. He didn't open it. He just sat in his car in the dark parking lot, engine off, watching his breath fog the windows. They say the truth always comes out. They're right. But what they don't tell you is that once it does, you can't hide from it. Not ever. Gloria was always a genius. I was just a guy lucky enough to stand next to her, and I was too stupid to know it. He started the car, drove home to his empty apartment. Tomorrow he'd do it all again. Stock shelves, count pills, smile at customers who recognize him as a cautionary tale. And the next day, and the next. This was his life now. This was what he chose when he chose to steal, to cheat, to underestimate the woman who loved him. The surgeon's secret wasn't that he stole a technique. It was that he never had the brilliance he claimed in the first place. And when a woman who gave him everything decided to take back what was hers, the world finally saw the truth. Some people build empires. Others just stand in the shadow of genius and pretend the light is theirs. Joseph Blackwell spent his whole life pretending. And when Gloria turned off the light, the world saw him for exactly what he was: ordinary. The technique was always hers. The brilliance was always hers. The future is hers. And he's just a man who thought he could steal from a genius and get away with it. He was wrong. So what do you think? Did Gloria go too far? Or did Joseph get exactly what he deserved? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one, and I want to know where you stand on this. Here's the thing. Joseph's story isn't unique. Every day, someone's taking credit for work they didn't do. Every day, a quiet genius is being overlooked while someone louder claims the spotlight. Maybe you've experienced it yourself. Had your ideas stolen, your contributions erased, your brilliance dismissed because you weren't loud enough or arrogant enough to demand recognition. If this story hit you in the chest, if it made you think about the Josephs or the Glorias in your own life, hit that subscribe button, because we tell stories like this every week. Stories about karma, justice, and what happens when people think they're untouchable discover they're not. And if you know someone who needs to hear this story, maybe someone who's been overlooked, underestimated, or had their work stolen, share this video with them. Let them know that the quiet ones, the patient ones, the genuinely brilliant ones, they don't stay quiet forever. And when they finally speak up, the world listens. Leave me a comment. Have you ever had someone take credit for your work? Or maybe you witnessed someone's carefully constructed lies finally collapse. Tell me your story. The best ones might become our next video. Hit that like button if you believe in karma. Subscribe if you want more stories about people who thought they were too smart to get caught. And remember, the truth always comes out. Always. Now, if you want to see what happens when a billionaire tries to silence a whistleblower and it backfires spectacularly, check out the video on your screen right now. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. I'll see you in the next one. And remember, never underestimate the quiet ones. They're usually the ones who know exactly what they're doing.